Senior executive chumps at Volvo have just reiterated the company's long-term inability to operate a viable automotive business in line with the market and, of course, the facts. In 2021, those Chinese-owned Swedish virtue-signalling electric utopians said, yeah, dude, EVs, we're all in. We're going to be fully electric by 2030. And then just Wednesday, they said, yeah, about that. It's actually not possible, mainly because most people don't want EVs. Oops-a-daisy. Apparently, they've been sucking on the virtue Kool-Aid while they should have been looking at what car buyers actually want. I'm John Cadogan from AutoExpert.com.au. New cars cheap, but Australia only. Website. Card. Volvo is, of course, one of the automotive industry's iconic loser brands. Actually, it's fair to say they were once looking good. One of their engineers, a dead-set genius, Niels Bollen, invented, can you guess? The three-point seatbelt, dude. That was back in 1959, or, as I prefer to think of it, 4 BC, before Cadogs. So, rather a long time ago now, I'd suggest. And that was basically peak Volvo, right? It's been kind of downhill since then, the death of 1,000 cuts, and lately, always the frickin' fire sale. We'll get to that in a sec. But first, Volvo is squirming right now thanks to being spit-roasted transatlantically with barbed wire enemas from both North America and Europe, because Volvo is really just Chinese now, majority owned by Geely, and both of those jurisdictions are in the midst of imposing huge tariffs on Chinese cars, which Volvo essentially is. At the same time, civilised countries are backpedaling on EV incentives, and sufficient consumers have discovered just how big a pain in the crack EV ownership is, and the stench of that is finally getting around into the mainstream. Go figure. Registrations of new EVs are down almost 11% in Europe. Here in Shitsville, despite massive federal government incentives, EV sales are up just 1.4% so far this year. And to put this in perspective, diesel vehicle sales are growing at more than 4 times that rate, 6.4% to the end of August this year. Go figure. It's almost as if people have woken up to the fact that EVs are not going to fix the climate problem. They're kind of hard to repair and, at times, almost impossible to charge. And then there's the crap resale value and the pesky underground car park fires. This report is sponsored by NordVPN. Get 4 extra months of Nord for free now. It's totally risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee at nordvpn.com/AEJC. Online security threats are everywhere, but obviously you don't have to be the next victim. And that's where NordVPN comes in, locking everything down efficiently in the background. Go to nordvpn.com/AEJC now. Every 2-year NordVPN plan receives a huge discount plus 4 bonus months on top for free. nordvpn.com/AEJC. I'll put a link in the description. Using NordVPN is dead easy. Just subscribe, download the app and connect. 1 click later, your IP address is shielded and your traffic is encrypted across as many as 6 of your devices. Nord is, of course, the fastest VPN on the planet, and it costs only about as much as 1 cup of coffee every month to keep your data, your identity, and your devices secure. Masking your location also means you'll be able to access streaming and other services that might be geo-blocked where you live, plus you can continue to watch your favourite content when you travel. Go to nordvpn.com/ expert.com/AEJC now. Boost your security, get a huge discount, and enjoy those 4 extra months completely free on every 2-year plan. It's all totally risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. That's nordvpn.com/AEJC. I'll put a link in the description. So instead of this headstrong commitment to 100% electrification by 2030, those Chino-Swedish losers said on Wednesday that they were now aiming for 90% electrification by 2030 with, 10% hybrids or something, like firm possibility of a definite maybe. This is aiming for, right, as opposed to totally committed to, which is a big difference in my view. So we might as well just be adrift in the ocean and kind of aim ambitiously for the new world, which is out there somewhere. But really, we're just going to go wherever the wind and the tides take us. So that'll be a voyage of discovery, won't it? Essentially, on my world, this is the opposite of committing to a plan. We are resolute in our belief that our future is electric. Jimbo Roro there, or J-Ro, as I prefer to call him with his rap name, the CEO of the poisoned Swedish Chinese chalice. I'm ashamed to say that Jimbo is actually an engineer with a doctorate and everything in mechanical engineering. That's according to his LinkedIn, if memory serves. And here he is, trotting out the B word. Belief. Like, come on. Belief is such an interesting concept, which to me means broadly claiming to know something you absolutely don't and with no evidence to back it up. So, great. If you want to see belief in action, just go to church, any church, next Sunday. It'll be there. I guarantee it. And there's nothing wrong with that. Unfortunately, Mr. J-Ro didn't shut up right then and there. However, it is clear that the transition to electrification will not be linear, and customers and markets are moving at different speeds. Yeah, certainly different speeds, but all kind of backwards globally when aggregated at this point. Bit of a problem when you've smeared as much lube on the battery-powered appliances as Volvo has in recent years. They've been lubing so enthusiastically for 3 years now. And now this, dude, it's so frustrating. And this business about non-linearity, please. For an engineer, to me, speaking personally, this just seems like sloppy language. He should know what linearity is. This comment reeks of something a spin doctor thinks will sound good, like it's a nice soundbite. Dude, the adoption of EVs has never been linear. It's been geometric, right? Thanks to Electric Jesus and his early adopting followers, all jumping in, being part of the initial stampede. There was an early adoption geometric spike, and this is not uncommon. It's kind of like when smartphones lobbed or anything else. Now, however, the trend is towards linearity with kind of noise on top as senior government masturbators attempt to manipulate markets by adding or removing EV ownership incentives depending on prevailing political sentiment. The fundamentals have not changed though. EVs are not right for the majority of car owners, and it's kind of hard to get around that. And as the market matures, EVs are going to flatline. They're going to go from linear to flatline as demand and attrition just trend towards equivalence, right? Of probably not more than 30% EVs making up fleets globally. And then that's really only going to be in the developed world. Like, come on, it's time to face facts. And that would be the case if EVs were actually superior to combustion cars, right? Which they are, I guess, except for the upfront cost, the crap range, the lousy charging infrastructure, the grid capability to support wide-scale charging, which is virtually non-existent, the breathtaking resale value, which is like, medic, the spiralling insurance costs, the heart-stopping repair costs. Like, Go and price the battery in your EV if you own one now. Like, poor risk management, I guess, overall, and the looming environmental catastrophe of stockpiles of scrapped batteries, which ultimately you are going to be able to see from space. Aside from that, they are definitely superior. Early adopters are easy to sell EVs to, right? They drink the Kool-Aid and they don't question the Book of Elon, do they? But we're at the point where the likes of Volvo need ordinary punters to step up and decide that they want to own an EV if the fantasy of electric utopia is actually to be realised. And ordinary car buyers are a much harder sell than the faithful, right? Because they're not religious about it. They just want the best car for them on balance in the circumstances. And generally, at least lately, that car is a frickin' hybrid, dude, which you can operate without the military-grade special ops logistic planning, which ordinary people don't have the time or the inclination to do. Punters want to do the right thing for the environment, sure, like we all do, yeah? But if we only sold EVs for the next 15 years in this amazing country, like 1 million EVs every year, it would take 20 years to fully electrify the fleet of light vehicles, maybe 25, depending on how long those EVs last. And that would make 10% difference to our national CO2 emissions. And to me, putting this as fairly as I am able, this seems like a hell of a lot of effort for just a 10% reduction. So Mr. Row, doing his first ever automotive executive job, floating around on an ocean of uncertainty at the helm of HMS Volvo, is peddling the virtue like a 15-year-old, believing resolutely in an electric Volvo future, while at the same time plugging back into combustion for some sort of indefinite period. Kind of like Ford, GM, three-prong, and those filthy emissions cheaters from Wolfsburg. I am frankly amazed that anyone in the media still cares what Volvo says or does. Volvo sales here in Shitsville are down 21% so far this year. That's for 8 months. And the brand captures 8 cars in every 1,000 new vehicles sold. Imagine that. Viability always so far over the horizon. Such a bastard. Volvo is, of course, renowned for its unique combination of unreliability and crap customer support, which often fails to meet even the minimum thresholds of basic consumer law compliance in this neck of the woods. So, there's that. Volvo Cars hasn't actually been a real business for about a quarter of a century now, and I'm not making that up. It's more of a curse packed with vestigially useful collateral from time to time. Volvo Group finally kicked its cars habit by selling it to Ford in 1999, so it could concentrate on heavy vehicles, which do kick a bit of a goal. Now, Volvo Cars went to Ford for the princely sum of $6.45 billion US. Only Ford could have seen that as a worthwhile investment. Ford had always harboured this perverse fantasy about hooking up with a high-class Swedish Mercedes-Benz, and Volvo AB was just the girl who could not say no on that one when offered almost 7 billion greenbacks, okay? Ultimately, Ford threw Volvo Cars into its premier automotive group cesspit with its other newly acquired freaks, Land Rover and Jaguar, and then it proceeded to conduct a series of novel inbreeding experiments in the complete absence of ethics committee approval. This went on for some time, okay, before Ford began drowning in red ink in about 2007. The drowning continued despite throwing Land Rover and Jaguar overboard in India in 2008. After paying nearly $7 billion for Volvo back in 1999, Ford made a small fortune from a rather big one when it exchanged the Swedish millstone for just $1.8 billion in 2010. Imagine doing that. Imagine buying a house for nearly $7 billion and then selling it 10 years later for 1.8. Volvo's lucky new owner was Geely from China, which nobody in the West had ever heard of back then, like at that time. Nobody ever buys Volvo because it's an awesome automotive business, is what I'm saying. It's not some license to print money. Ford bought it because of the blue oval Swedish Mercedes fantasy, which incidentally was why GM bought Saab. Like, they didn't want Ford to have it all. And that worked out well also, if memory serves. Geely couldn't say no to this deal because buying Volvo was a bargain basement way to acquire all of that IP, like the tech. They didn't want the car-making business. They wanted the tech so that they could get it and use it to metastasize through the rest of Geely's operations. It was a kind of cheapo, off-the-shelf solution, an in-house upgrade kind of thing. Those Volvo things, the badge and the business, were, in a sense, just like the dress and the heels that a stripper walks onto stage wearing. It's part of the act, but ultimately nobody really cares about that. This is that. Today, the only people still buying Volvos in Australia are reading 25-year-old copies of Wheels magazine and not really understanding how things have changed. They're the same people who still buy Hondas, incidentally. Go figure. The Volvo brand is a withered husk of its former self, having had its IP pillaged by China, and it's become little more than a warning for other car makers tempted to play the virtue ball and not the market. I suppose for J-Row at this point it was either, backpedal and engage the resolute belief engine or just stand there and fix battery-powered bayonets. And fixing bayonets is always a last resort, isn't it? Basically, Volvo's going to have to continue to talk the electric virtue talk to keep various governments happy, which is what they're doing now, at least for the time being. But they are definitely back to walking the combustion walk. Jimbo Roro, it seems to me, has just joined several other car makers taking the first step on the road to electric utopian rehab. They're in a club which we should probably call EVs Anonymous, trying to kick the habit. Still jonesing for the virtue, obviously, but they can see that internal combustion is certainly here to stay.